Hello everybody, Frankie here from Vibrant Center for Voice and Movement. And this week I want to spotlight emotions, the information that our emotions give to us and how we can work with them so that we're not stuck in them. And this seems like a very timely topic, especially because for those of us who are indoors a lot, sheltering in place, and perhaps without some of the outlets that we've been using, whether consciously or unconsciously in the past for our emotions, we are often sitting with them and experiencing them fully. And that can be very disconcerting. For example, I'm very used to being able to go out and go for a run or be able to go to the gym, and I'm not able to do that, or even just simply going and hanging out with friends or going for a meal or going to the bar. Those can be have an emotional component, and of course we're not able to enjoy those things or rely on those things like we used to. So today I want to focus on anger. And the other thing about emotions is that they can be very gendered in terms of how people are taught that they're allowed to express themselves or what emotions they're allowed to experience, and even what an emotion will look like on one type of gender compared to another. Anger is a perfect example of this. So anger is information, and all of our emotions are information. I really appreciate the work by a woman named Karla McLaren, and she is an empath, and so she writes a lot of books and makes a lot of materials for empaths, for people to have healthy emotional boundaries. And what I love about her work is she talks about how when we're open and having free flowing emotions, we're not getting stuck in an emotion, that's actually very healthy, right? So if you're driving your car, a little bit of fear is going to keep you alive. You're going to be looking around for hazards. You're going to be checking out what other people are doing. You're going to be able to make some decisions in the moment and kind of be in a flow state with a quality of fear. So let's talk about anger. Anger, the information that anger provides, the gift of anger, is that anger lets you know that something outside of yourself is infringing on a boundary. So there's something that's happening and it's an external force, and it's either broken that boundary entirely or it's threatening that boundary. And the beauty of anger is energy. It gives us the energy we need to rebuild that boundary, to reestablish where that line is, whether we need to shift the line in some way or whether we really just need to confirm that boundary. So when you feel anger coming up in yourself, the question is what boundary is being crossed? So we can mix this with organic intelligence, and I'll take you through that in a moment. I want to emphasize that healthy anger is extremely important. We should all experience the range of emotions that we have: joy, bliss, anger, shame, sadness, grief, and be able to work with them artfully. And then as actors, this is a self-care question for you, the actor, and then also in your art, being able to work with emotions. As I say, actors are physical, emotional, and vocal athletes. But really, this information is great for everybody because we all have a range of emotions, and we should all have healthy relationships with our emotions. So free-flowing anger, when it rises up, it tells you that there is a boundary that is being crossed for you and that it is time for you to reassess. It may also mean that you have to reassess that relationship. or at least ensure that you have a healthy enough relationship that you can tell that person that this boundary is being crossed. It can also be different, right? It might be one thing if a stranger in the grocery store cuts in front of you in line. That's not necessarily like a big relationship that you have to weigh pros and cons, except you want to react appropriately so that you're not the bad person. And if you ever have to see them again, you want to be able to hold your head up high. But if it's a loved one, if it's a child, if it's a parental figure, a lot can go into weighing how to address that boundary needs to be respected in the future. Because what happens is if that boundary continues to be crossed, it can start to become a trauma. It can start to build so that when you do blow, it becomes a lot bigger than maybe what the other person could be expecting. So understanding small ways that you can make that boundary concrete, make that boundary healthy, and communicate that boundary is really important. And ultimately, that art is going to be up to you to find the words or the methods of being able to establish that boundary in a healthy way, in a non-passive-aggressive way, right? And sometimes it might be stepping out of the instant in the moment and being able to address it with that person later. So here's a practice to offer, and you can do it with me. You don't have to be feeling anger in this moment. But let's just walk through a little bit of the organic intelligence orienting practice. And I also want to say here that this week of working on emotions was totally inspired by my core class. Last Thursday, the theme that came up was resistance, and we ended up having a really lovely class working with resistance and also understanding what the gifts of resistance are and what the message, the underlying need of resistance can be. So it was super, super yummy, and that made me want to bring in this work on emotions and make it available to everybody. So I would suggest finding your seat. You don't have to be sitting on a zafu like I am. You can be sitting in a chair, you can be sitting on the floor, anything. And again, with this work, allow yourself to lean into comfort. So if there are small actions that you can make, maybe finding a yawn, maybe being able to release some tension or lying down, whatever that would make you feel more comfortable, do that for yourself as this practice continues. So in this moment, I'm actually going to lean against the wall, and then, I feel how my breath shifts and how the tension in my body gives way just by finding a little bit of support for my upper back. And that's giving me a little bit of an emotional reaction of pleasure. So let's say anger's come up. I want you to take a pause and take a moment to find something in your built environment around you that feels solid. Something to anchor your attention in this moment. And as you are with this object in your environment, allow yourself to breathe. Let your jaw release so that there's space between your molars. And let your tongue soften so that if it's crammed up against the roof of your mouth, let it drop down. And I went somewhere else for a moment. I went inside, so I'm coming back to this object in my environment that feels like an anchor. But I'm not losing that connection to myself. I'm still breathing. And you heard me, I exhaled on sound. So do that for yourself. I'm connected to my environment, but I'm staying connected to my own self. So let's exhale on some sound. And even if you're not feeling anger in this moment, for practice, you could remember the last time you felt a little twinge of anger. And anchor yourself to this space. And find your breath. As you continue to soften your body and make small adjustments. And now bring your awareness to your sense of hearing. What sounds are part of your environment in this moment? Maybe you can hear the birds outside. Maybe you can hear if someone else is in the house. Maybe you can hear just the creaks and noises of your house. And if you'd like to do this, I invite you to take a squeeze, a stretch, a shake, and a flop with me. So in sitting, I'm just going to squeeze all of my muscles up really, really tight. Squeeze my throat, squeeze my ribs, squeeze my butt, my hands, and my face, and all of the muscles in between my toes, all the way up to my hair, and still breathe. And then stretch, take up space. Open the ribs. Open the fingers, open the toes. Stretch out the legs. And take this into a shake. Let the head go, let the arms go, let the legs go. Make the weirdest sound you're going to make all day. And then flop. Just find your support here and give in to those surfaces that are holding you up. You might flop to the floor, flop against the back of your chair and into the seat. Keep letting that jaw go, keep letting that tongue go. And breathe. And I want you to just listen to the sounds around you. And just drop your awareness into your body and your breath. And drop in that question, what boundary is being crossed? Let your body answer this question. Let the brain be soft in your skull. And let your body release that answer. What is the repair that you need to do? 2, 1. Just give your toes a wiggle, your fingers a wiggle. If your eyes are closed, just gently allow the light back into your eyes. Take a look around the room. Acknowledge that anchor object that you found earlier. Take a big breath in and exhale on sound. Gorgeous. So a few things that I want to touch on before I wind things up is that you can see with the way that I'm working here, we're keeping unity between the body and the breath through the voice. One reason to use the exhale on sound is it reminds you to keep breathing, but also that hearing your own sound can be quite grounding. Feeling your own vibration can be very useful. It can help to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that is responsible for monitoring our degree of safety inside of the body. And also, it's allowing us to express what we're feeling, which might be a little bit below the conscious arena. So it can bring something up into our consciousness. There's a power in linking sound to your feelings, to your experience. Just like when we're working with little kids and we have encouraged children to give voice to what they're feeling in that moment, and that can be very empowering. Lastly, is anger is a very charged emotion right now, because anger and fear and anger and shame can be very closely linked. And I'll get into that when I talk about fear and when I talk about shame later in this week. But also because a lot of us, speaking for myself, I use social media quite a bit, especially Facebook and Instagram, and those are controlled by algorithms. What I see, what the platforms think I'm going to engage with are controlled by algorithms. And those algorithms don't really care if something ignites your best self. What it cares about is it ignites engagement, clicks, and comments. And what actually will encourage people to engage is outrage, which isn't far from anger. So that's like it's like the more that gets stimulated in the brain, that the easier it is to go there, right? We know this. This is how our nervous systems work. And so it's really important to be able to have healthy boundaries and healthy separation from the internet and from all of the people with opinions online, and to think before posting or sharing or reacting with outrage. And so having a practice that encourages you to feel your own body and to reconnect for a moment and to reconnect with your own immediate reality is a beautiful balance and even antidote to this outrage culture, to this clickbait culture that we live in. I'm not telling anyone to not use the internet. I'm not telling anyone to not use social media. I use it a lot and it's very important for my business. This is how I'm able to communicate to you. But with all things, balance is important. And so I encourage you that when an emotion bubbles up, take the time to feel into your own body. Take the time to feel into your own breath and your own voice. Take the time to reconnect to the immediate environment around you, and be able to establish for yourself that the world of the internet is not your immediate reality. If you have any thoughts on this, if you have any epiphanies about your relationship to anger, or this brought up a realization for you, please feel free to reach out to me personally and send me a message through the Vibrant Center for Voice and Movement page, or you can also drop a comment below. I hope you are well. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And I will see you all again soon. Goodbye.